I mean, as a shadow worker, you can't not be about a person's origins. The problem is that we're incredibly limited when we think about our origins. The vast majority of people who are doing healing work or integrative work are taking a person back to just what they in their individual lifetime have experienced. Beyond that, a lot of people are focused on past lives, and none of this takes into account the thing that perhaps influences who we are in this life, our identity that we chose into before we came here, the portions of our identity we chose into before we came here, as our ancestral lineage does. It's the cards that you chose before coming here. So not really having an awareness about that is like not knowing what cards you're playing with in life. And that's sad for a myriad of reasons. One of the reasons why we came down into this kind of a construct is to say, I want to create expansion in this family line. So every individual that's born into a family comes into that family as the progression for that family line. That means that each and every one of us took on the challenge of embodying those elements of mastery that come through a family line whilst alchemizing the elements that are not necessarily serving the family line. That's serious consciousness work. It's saying, okay, maybe for so many generations, our families just expected the worst to happen. Now my expectation of the worst to happen is setting me up so that I can't even use the laws that govern this time-space reality to create. So that probably doesn't serve us anymore. I need to be the one to change that. I just think it's very powerful for people to understand where the origin is of these things that they're experiencing, and also to recognize patterns within the whole, not just patterns within the self, because we're looking at a microcosm of the macrocosm when we're looking at an individual's life. All of us are experiencing ancestral trauma. We're carrying on those deals from grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, without even knowing it. And what I've noticed is that when people become aware of that whole story, it enables them to take ownership of something, but also to depersonalize it at the same time. It actually, what I've noticed is puts them more in a space of empowerment about, all right, if that's how it has been and it hasn't been serving, what do I do differently? Also, recognizing those very powerful elements that you don't even need to work on. I mean, some family lines have already mastered abundance, for example. How great to be like, all right, I may be working on relationships in this lifetime, but I don't have any issue with money. And to just own that is, okay, I'm playing with some aces. So much of the focus, I think, when it comes to healing work is like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And so it's good to give people some of those power cards to become conscious of and be like, oh, confidence.
Yeah. So I'm excited to dive deeper into both the challenges and the gift side of things. How important do you, because you mentioned, how important do you feel like is it to delineate where in time and space the story of an origin actually even started? Because we might have this behavioral compensation for people pleasing or abandonment or whatever it is, but how necessary is it that we find, where it started? Can we just observe the pattern and work with it in real time?
I don't know how to quantify this for you, because I'm one of those people who will tell you that the more information you have, the more conscious you're going to be about changing the whole thing. But it's not like I'm going to draw a line and say it's absolutely necessary. Why? Because the patterns that are still active from within your ancestral line are going to be affecting you in your day-to-day life. It's just that most people don't know that. Most people, when they're dealing with, an issue with success or an issue with their relationships, they don't see that the origin started before their time with a great-grandparent or a parent or something. They're really not looking at that level of things. But let's say that they had no awareness of it. They were adopted or something, and they've still got this thing going on. They wouldn't necessarily have to know that to change it in their own life. They are doing ancestral healing anyway. It's just, most of us can relate to that juicy, incredible, almost crystallized feeling of being like, oh, wait, oh my gosh, look, there's emotional abandonment running through my dad's line. Like I can see it in the way that his parents interacted with him. Wait, where did that come from? Now going back to your great-grandparents being like, oh, that's weird. He grew up in this time in this place, and this is how he was raised because of whatever war, for example. It crystallizes the why behind the whole thing for people. So it's just like the better it gets, the better it gets. Mm-hmm. But what I'm really wanting to do for people is to have them recognize these patterns, and these patterns as they occur across history. Most especially because right now in the world, let's just say that ancestral trauma that is playing out on a mass scale is about to repeat in a very serious way, in a way we would do very well to avoid. So if we can't recognize these patterns within ourselves, they're going to play out again.